Thank you. Oh, thank you. First things first, I am pregnant, so I'm not just fat. Yeah, almost 3 months tomorrow, so yay for me, another miracle. Yep. So I don't normally have quite this amount of bumpiness, but that's all right. Okay, so yep, he kind of gave you my presentation, but we'll start over. I named my presentation God Changed My Mind because I've had such a terrible struggle with brain cancer, so I figure mind, haha, very clever, right? Okay, so this is me, I'm Jill Kanzenbach, and I was a doin'. Now, being a doin' means 3 things. It means you always go to church every week. Like, your head needs to be in a toilet or your butt needs to be in the toilet to not go to church. And I think I remember missing three sermons in the 18 years I lived at home. 2 because of mono, 1 because of chicken pox. They don't let you go for those things. So you always go to church. Behind me, there is my home church, Trinity in Watertown. And I did grow up in Prairie du Chien. We moved because of what they call amalgamation. It means smushing 2 schools together. So there was a school in Prairie du Chien, and there was a school in Watertown, and they smushed them together and made Luther Prep School, where my dad taught. So the first things first, you have that pattern of going to church every week. In fact, even now, when I go to a Thursday night service, it is weird because I feel like I'm missing something when it's Sunday and I'm not at church. It's so weird. Anyway, okay, so I went to some really, really great schools. I've always gone to Wells School, so I'm sure that most of you don't have that born and bred Wells in you, but I do. Like, my whole family went to MLC. My whole family went through Luther Prep, or MLPS at the time. So I went to some really great Wells schools, been taught Wells since the day I was born. The doing stuff. I almost left out some things. So, as you can tell by my arms and by my weight now, to be a doing means to be very, very well fed. I think my mom is one of the best cooks in the Synod, and I've been told that by more than one person. Almost the whole campus of Luther Prep School is like, when's your mom bringing cinnamon rolls? Like, it's crazy how the reputation has gone. Everything has fat and lard and salt in it. It's wonderful. So we're all very well fed and larger than we should be, but you know, that makes happy wife, happy life. Is that how it goes, or something like that? Happy daughter, I don't know. And we're all wildly competitive. So I am 3 of 4, and I am the least competitive of my brothers and sisters. We fight over everything: grades, sports, plays, who mom and dad loves the most. We fight over everything. But it's like kitty fighting, you know, we're not really mean it. But my dad taught biology, and he always had our notebooks graded. Oh, that was tooth and nail who was going to get an A from my dad. And we all did except Kent. Ha ha ha. So anyway, we are wildly competitive. So after my husband and I got married, I met him the first week of school at a mixer. And I said, I'm Jill, and I'm from Watertown. And he said, I'm Matt, and I'm from Watertown. But we were from 2 separate Watertowns. He was from Watertown, South Dakota, and I'm from Watertown, Wisconsin. And I thought, my little Watertown. He's too good looking to be from my little Watertown. And by the end of the week, we were dating, and 5 years later, we got married. So we got married 2 weeks after graduation, and Call Day made us move to Lincoln, Nebraska. Lincoln, Nebraska feels a lot like Madison. Very, very wealthy. Not really too many bad neighborhoods, very, very focused on the U. There's a lot of people that go to U of L and the whole deal. And so to sum up my early life, I had it good. I had it really good. I had great jobs that paid me more than they should have. I had an awesome family who always took care of me. I had amazing husband who's really good looking. And I knew in the end that we were going to get a call in a situation, and it was so exciting. And then Call Day hits, and there's lots of things that you're thinking about before Call Day happens. So what Call Day is when you graduate from MLC, you are told, well, you put your life in God's hands. You say, I'm going to go anywhere that God sends me, and that is the right decision. Now, Jill had this in her mind because Matt and I were both 5 years, which meant we wanted to teach high school. But there were 9 calls to Luther Prep School where I went to school. 9. It was unbelievable because there's all these tutor calls and there were 2 professorships. And Matt and I had both coached at area Lutheran high schools. We were like, this is a lock. Like, we got this. A married couple going to prep, it's like automatic. But it didn't happen. My husband's a little too smart for that stuff. Like, they wouldn't give him a year off or 2 as a tutor. So they threw him right into a principalship, and he had grades 3 through 8 and everything at our new church and school. So this is a picture of where we first got sent in Lincoln, Nebraska. And these are all current pictures from their website. So first things first, why are you putting see-through letters over the top when people can barely read that? The banners that are in the Easter picture, which was actually up for Easter, very exciting, those 2 banners I made when I lived there 15 years ago. And that's a picture of the school, which it looks wildly attractive with all that parking lot. But anyway, so this is where I lived in Lincoln, Nebraska. Lincoln was a great place to live, but there was a lot of stressors in our life. First things first, you have to leave your family. It was very hard for me to only see my parents once a year. And that was even more tough because I got a job selling very, very expensive handbags to women who needed a new one for each season. So I couldn't leave during Christmas. We had to move, which is wildly stressful, especially even when you have to live in a car for like 3 weeks. It was ridiculous. And then when we had finally gotten to Lincoln and gotten our feet on the ground, we were thinking about buying a house, and I'll tell more about that later. You're on your own for the first time in your life. I've never lived outside of a dormitory before. All my friends were married. We pretty much all got married that summer. I attended 8 weddings that summer, and all of them, except for me somehow, were having babies. And I was terrified of having babies, and now I'm not, so we're better now. But anyway, and Matt was too. He was like, I am too busy for babies. I can barely breathe here. I don't know what's going on with all these people. But anyway, everyone was having babies. So I had to get a new job because I wasn't going to have a call, which was a titch of a stress, but then you have to meet all the people at your work. So I got a very fancy job at this Von Mar store. And I don't know if you know what it's right on the highway, and they're building a new one. So exciting. Go there and waste your money. It's totally a waste of money, but it's great. They have free shipping, and your credit card will love you if you shop there. So to put a long story short, Matt was doing everything. When you teach 3rd through 8th grade, you run the hot lunch, you run the choir, you run the kids choir, you run the sports, you run the state law stuff, you run the Arbor Day, you run this, you run that. And he was going crazy. I was trying to help him correct, but that's as much as I can do. The next thing, our pastor, who was wonderful, got cancer right off the bat. By the first Christmas, he was having surgery. And by that first Christmas, my husband was reading sermons and doing some of the pastoral duties when he was already too busy and in his first year teaching. So that was a mess, and pastor was gone almost 8 months. He had it in high school too, and they took out part of his fibia to replace some of the bone here where his tumor had been. So he jokes that he doesn't put his foot in his mouth, he puts his whole leg. But I'm pumped. Yeah, exactly. So he was gone, and then so to try to replace him, we called a staff minister who was already in our congregation. And then within 6 months, he had cheated on his wife. And they had all kind of kept this under wraps, but we were the people that had to tell everybody, that's why he's not giving communion. That's why we have to take him out of position. But no one would just fess up about it, and it was a total mess. And then an attempted suicide happened while we were there. Not me or my husband. There's no reason to kill yourself. It's ridiculous. But anyway, there were 2 students that were in Matt's room, and they had recently moved to Lincoln, and their mother had recently had her husband die. He was in a car accident, and she was very messed up at the time. Lots of drugs, lots of drinking, and she came by the school and told my husband, she said, I don't think I can take the kids home today, which she had done before, but he could tell something was wrong, so he hit the lock button for all of the doors and wasn't going to let her out. Her plan was to take her car to the busiest highway in the city, which was only a few blocks away from where we were, and drive it down the wrong side and hopefully get hit by a semi-truck. That was her plan, and because Matt locked her in the building, and it all worked out, but in the end, Matt and I had foster kids for about 2 months because of all this attempted suicide stuff. So anyway, we got through that. So a little overwhelming. And then, bam, cancer. So more cancer comes at me. This is called glioblastoma multiforme, and I'm sure that you guys know everyone in here knows someone with cancer. And if you don't, it'll happen very soon. Every 6 seconds, someone dies from cancer. There's about 12 deaths every minute. They call my cancer, I probably shouldn't repeat this, but it's terrible. They told me not to look at any websites. And the first one I go to calls it the NFL of all cancers, because it stands for nobody, and then the F word, of course, lives. Because nobody lives. Nobody lives. So every year, about 12,000 people die from glioblastoma multiforme. And it's so bad because it's blood-fueled, which means it's impossible to stop because your heart's going to keep going. You can't stop your heart to save your brain. So that's why it's so aggressive and grows back so fast. So of those 12,000 people, in my year that I got it, which was 2008, 10,200 people got it. Okay, so I've broken this down. This is really cool. These stats are about 3 years old because I used to speak a lot more back then. But anyway, so 10,200 people got it in 2008. And then about 5,100 people make it 3 months because it's so lethal right off the bat. And then 408 people are still alive. But of those 408 people, 75% have severe disabilities. Either they can't walk, they can't talk, they can't communicate. There's a lot of different things that can happen because what happens with this is it takes one little sense away from you each time. One of the things it took from me right off the bat was I could not see out of this eye. And then when I started to get back to seeing, it was double vision, and I'll talk more about that later. Anyway, so I am one of 102 people left, which is totally a miracle. And when I was in my studies, I was one of 112 people, and I was the only one that made it. So how did God get me through cancer? Not me getting through cancer. That's a different soapbox that I'll get on later. Okay, so first and foremost, his omniscient will. This is obvious. I mean, if God didn't want me to live, I wouldn't be here. So Proverbs 19:20 talks about that just simply. Many are the plans of man's heart. Mine was to have babies and have a nice family and move and do all this fun stuff. But the Lord's purpose is the one that prevails. All right. Then his almighty power. Oh, this one's my favorite, actually, because I think to myself, and many people ask me this, how do you think that he's going to cure you from this? Nobody lives from this. Nobody. And I said, well, if God put me together, he can fix some little brain thing. This is like nothing. In Job 38, Job is finally like really coming clean with God and is kind of questioning why he would be so sick and so out of commission and how pitiful he was at the time. He was starting to tell God all the things that were wrong. And God calls him a man with words but no knowledge, which is kind of what I felt like it sometimes. He asked, were you there when I knit together the universe? Were you there when I laid the earth's foundation? Do you give orders to the morning? I mean, obviously not. Definitely not. And he was, and that's kind of the best part about the whole story about Job. And then he says some awesome things about how God is so amazing. So that's my favorite one. I mean, God he blinks and I'm better. I mean, that's all it took. I love that story where Jesus heals Jairus' daughter. It's just like a piece of cake. Like, I don't even have to be there. It's awesome. Okay, his amazing timing. One of my favorite verses in the Bible is one we had in a Christmas story way back when I was in 8th grade, because I got to read the verse. It was very exciting. And it's that verse that says, when the time had fully come, God sent his son, born of a woman, born under love. Blah, blah, blah. We all know that one, so I'm not going to say the whole thing. But the whole point is that God set up everything in the whole universe so that Jesus was born at the exact moment that he was supposed to be born. Rome, peace, everything. Everything was exactly the way it should be. And it was exactly the time that I was supposed to get cancer. So, first things first, I thought I had a sinus infection. I was blowing my nose all the time, and I had a huge headache. And I had called in sick to work, which I never do. It's like the church thing. You don't miss it. So I called in sick to work a few days. I went to their urgent care, and they said, yeah, you have a sinus infection. And they gave me some meds. And then I started throwing up. It was like unbelievably bad. And then when I had nothing to throw up, I would just like kind of pass out every once in a while. And Matt was like, no, we're getting you to a real doctor on Monday. I didn't make it till Monday. I passed out on Sunday, and they sweep me off to the hospital, and they say another half an hour on the operating table and I would be gone. So God's timing was perfect. Not only did we live that close to the hospital, but the EMTs came fast enough. And I and Matt was home on a Sunday night, which almost never happens because he's always at school prepping. So like everything worked out for that. The next thing that worked out so great was we were about to buy a house. We were 10 days away from closing on a new and beautiful, like, split level. It was beautiful. I still want to live in that house. Oh my goodness, that earnest money, I was like, yes, I'm so excited. And it was still close to church. It was like the perfect house, and I was going to live there and be happy with my family. And then we were just close enough away, and Matt had some guys that he played poker with that were lawyers, so we got out of the whole house deal with no mess on us. So sad that we didn't get the house, but it works out perfect. Baby. So I was just about on Tuesday of the week where I passed out on Sunday to go to an OBGYN appointment to see what it would take to start thinking about a baby. But kind of glad I didn't make it to that, because obviously it'd be bad if I had a baby and then died. You know, like the whole thing would be wildly more complicated. Another thing that worked out is exactly 2 months after I was done with my first round of chemo treatment, my husband actually got a call, which is really an amazing miracle, because at the time there was a little bit of there was too many teachers for exactly how many calls there were. And we were just wildly thankful, because he didn't really want to rough like he had been doing for me. And then another thing that worked out great is my parents were available to live with. Well, now, first things first, never make your husband live with your parents, ever. Not that they don't get along. They get along great, everything's fine, but it shouldn't happen. Don't do it. Don't ever live on either side. It's not good. God says stuff about separating, and there's reasons. So listen to him. Anyway, but my parents were available, and they let us have a whole room downstairs, and we lived with them for over 3 months while I was in my first rounds of treatment, and that timing couldn't have worked out better. Okay, this is another awesome soapbox I want to stand on for a little while. I think that I've probably had a little over 35,000 people pray for me, which is totally amazing in every way. So I've kind of broken it down. In my district in Nebraska, there was about 25,000 people that had me in a weekly prayer. Then about 1,000 people at MLC at the time, about 500 at Prep. I student taught at Shoreland Lutheran, so that's another 300. Matt was at MVL, and I had coached there too, so that's another 300. 200 at Great Plains or so. I was in the ladies' aid calendar, so who knows how many people that gets to, because people buy that. I asked them one time, they said they sell about 5,000 of them. So that gives me another $5,000. I had 3 kindergarten teachers that put me as their like star person. We're gonna pray for you all the time. One of them, she had me update each week with them via Skype. Hilarious, these little kids are so excited to see me and be green, which is something we'll talk about later. And I had 26 congregations from guys like Aaron, who I knew that were in the SEM. So all those congregations prayed for me as well. And I was prayed for in 5 foreign countries: Mexico, Zambia. One of my friends from high school was in Zambia. My brother's roommate was in Mexico. My former roommate was in Canada, the Dominican Republic, where I had done some English as a second language stuff back in high school. And then I had 53 people in Israel, because that's where my brother-in-law was. And the day he found out that I had cancer, they were going to the Garden of Gethsemane. When someone prays for you in the Garden of Gethsemane, that means like they have to be closer to God somehow. It just has to be. It just has to be. So that's my whirlwind of prayer. Over 35,000 people praying for me, and one in the Garden of Gethsemane. So cool. Awesome. So the next thing is persistent prayers from countless people. And I'll talk more about that as I get to my next slide, or my second to next slide. And then he had me through cancer so that I could do two things. So that I could worship him, which I have a much easier time now. I'm not a whiny complainer like I used to be in Lincoln. I used to just think everything was going against me. He changed my mind and made me realize how good and how gracious he is, and not just because he saved me. I would still worship him anyway. But not only that, but there's so many good things in the worship service, and now I get to put them together at my church. I do the bulletin every week. And the art and the music and putting it all together with our pastors has just been awesome. It is so uplifting to do that every week. It's awesome. And then obviously my purpose is in his word, to study it every day, to talk about it every day like I'm doing right now, and to tell other people about it. I mean, God tells us all to do that. So now I'm going to tell a story about, I was visiting one of my friends, and she lived in Michigan at the time, and I was in this awful wig that I'll show you in a little bit. And I met this woman because wigs are wildly itchy. Like, you think, I want better hair, but you don't. You don't want to wear a wig. Okay, my husband called it a head condom, which is kind of what it is. You put this thing on your head, but it's supposed to make it stick on and stuff, but it's so awful. It itches, it's terrible. Like, you don't want a wig, even for Halloween. It's a mess. So I was itching the back like this, and itching kind of where my scar was and everything, and this girl that I was sitting across from in Union Station in Chicago, she said to me, "Are you wearing a wig?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've had a recent surgery and we want to cover up all this mess." And she's like, she just stopped and she looked at me like open eyes, and she's like, "Can I ask you a really terrible question?" And I said, "Sure, I'm just sitting here, I'm waiting, like just like you." And she's like, "Do you have cancer?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've got a terrible kind of cancer that nobody lives from, and I'm in my third surgery." And she was like, "What's it called?" And I'm like, "It's called glioblastoma multiforme, but no one's ever heard of it, And she was like, "I'm going home to visit my brother, who is about 2 days away from dying with my kind of cancer. And he's never heard of Jesus." And that whole train trip, all the way from Chicago to where I had to get off, I mean, I'm sure that I was overbearing, but this guy needed to hear about Jesus because he was, in it, and when you have a broken life, what's going to help you except for Jesus? So, okay. So this is my favorite slide, mostly because it has my friend Abby on it. Oh, no, not yet. Okay. Sorry. Okay, so this is more ways that he got me through cancer, and this is kind of the funniest slide to me. So in this corner, there's a lot of things going wrong with this woman. Mainly a turtleneck with no sleeves. Like, that's bad. Who are we kidding? But anyway, so they pour this like liquid jelly stuff all over your face, and it hardens so you can breathe and so you can see, and you're really okay in there. But a lot of people can't handle an MRI, and I'm not claustrophobic, so I'm good to go. But that makes it so that you can't even wiggle. Like there's no movement, because if you wiggle in an MRI, like, it's all over. They can't tell a thing anyway. They kind of can't tell a thing anyway, but I'll get into that. I've had 72 MRIs now, so I think I know what I'm talking about. So I had 2 rounds of radiation, and that's what happens. They also do that for radiation where you actually get zapped. One of my favorite nurses gave me a big tub of something called Aquaphor. If you ever have a sunburn or anything bad, it is like magic jelly, and it's like at Walgreens, like I don't know why people don't use it. It's amazing. Anyway, so she kind of kept me from being a charred mess, so I was good. I had 4 rounds of chemo, and that's my drug there. It's called temozolomide. On each little pill there, it says Temodar. And my I should show you this bag. Okay, so one of my friends got it for me because I'm obsessed with butterflies now because of the symbol of the resurrection. Now, I used to keep all my pills in here, and this guy was full. I'm talking full. And these ones, each of those pills that I would take 6 a day were worth $300 a pop. I was so expensive. It was amazing. Now, Wells Viba, if they made a shirt that says, I love Wells Viba, I would wear that thing every day, and I'd be like, I love Wells Viba. They took care of me because I paid almost nothing. We paid nothing for my drugs. It was amazing. And these guys make you throw up too, but then they gave me more drugs, so I wouldn't throw up, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff. But definitely poison in those blue pills. They're awful. But you have to take them. All right, my next thing, is my first experimental drug treatment, which was why we came to UW, why we lived with my parents, why we moved back to Wisconsin, and the whole thing. So it was called methoxyphene gadolinium, and it was abbreviated MGD. And my husband would make all these jokes that he should have an MGD while I was getting my MGD. Hilarious. Hilarious. But anyway, so MGD is a very, very dark green, like even darker than this. And they saw me and my pale little veins and everything, and they warned me ahead of time before I signed the document. They said, you are gonna be green. And I was like, really? Like really green? And I was. The whites of my eyes, my spit, my pee, everything was green. It was crazy. In fact, Abby came to visit me, and she couldn't believe it. She took a picture of my toilet because my pee was so green. It's hilarious. So to make a long story short, that was the best chemic relief on the first day of treatment. It was handing the urinologist tech a jar of green pee. It's hilarious. Nobody has green pee except for me. So, and there were tons of jokes about me being the Grinch. Anyway, so I had to take that down because it was messing with my blood pressure. But then I also had the treatment that I think is the one that really saved me. It was a combination of 2 drugs, selingitide and cinderanib. And selingitide is the one that marks the cells in your brain that says these are cancer, and selingitide is the one that executes them. And not only did it do that, but it also reminded me kind of an Old Testament king that Haggai had to deal with. And this is great. So he used to mock God, and God decided he was going to take care of him. So he had him dismembered and sent to all the reaches of the kingdom, which I think is perfect for a chemo drug. It's like just dismembering stuff and everything. And then I've had 4 surgeries. The first 2 were the emergency one, and then 15 days later they saw the regrowth. So they had to go in and take care of that as best as they could. So those are the first 2. And then the third one, they saw some vague gray material on my MRI. And so they decided, well, you could or you couldn't. And Matt and I were like, let's just get rid of it while we can. So we'd had the 3rd surgery, but they had labeled it experimental, which is wonderful for me because that meant that I could still be on treatments, experimental drug treatments, because they want you as pure as the driven snow. They don't want you to have even had chemo if you can help it. But anyway, Dr. Robbins pulled some strings for me and made it so I can be on the next one. And then my 4th surgery was, again, a suspect thing, so he got me on my last treatment. So those are the medical ways that I got through cancer. Okay, this is my favorite slide, and we'll start with the middle. The middle is my husband, Matt, and I had a terrible Christmas sweater party, and my vest is actually snowmen that are upside down. So great. Anyway, so I obviously am the extrovert in the family, and he obviously is the introvert, but that was the best thing for me at this time. I never, through all of it, after now we're almost 10 years, I never saw my husband cry. And I tell you, I think if I would have been a mess, but he never cried in front of me. He said that he had, at the beginning when you don't think you're going to wake up anymore and it's, all hitting you in the face. But he needed to be my rock. And those words that you say on your wedding day, as long as you both shall live, he meant them, 100%. Not a chance he was leaving me. He even lived with my parents. That's crazy talk. It's great. Okay, so then I'll talk about my parents. They're my lovely couple there, and as you can tell, they're a little round because my mom loves to cook and she loves to play Scrabble. And the second time I was in the hospital, she lived at my husband's house. It was just her and him, and they would come and see me every day. And she and I would play Scrabble because she was trying to get my brain working again and the whole deal. And I beat her. And she's like, "You're not even sick. Lies. It's lies." And then my dad is the sentimental one of the two, which is really weird because it's usually the opposite. But my dad is the one that's going to cry with you and commiserate and really be like, "Oh, my poor daughter." And you need someone to have that with you because otherwise you just feel like I'm just a whiner. But that's my dad. So he's great. Then we'll go to this corner. That's my pastor in Lincoln, Nebraska. And he was great at reality. He was not going to tell me I was going to make it through it, which was exactly what I needed, because my brother and a whole bunch of other people would call me Jill the Optimist Kanzenbach. And I'm like, that's so ridiculous, but it was really true. I would kind of deny how bad my cancer was. And he had been through cancer twice over, so he knows how bad it is. And that's his lovely wife who had a baby a mere 2 weeks after we moved back to Watertown. So then I'm going to go top corner to the guy with the fluffy hair. Now, that's not actually his hair. He has his head shaved in the next picture over. And he was wearing my wig at the time. Lovely, I know. But he didn't need the head sock because he had already shaved. But anyway, so I obviously had lost my hair, and that's actually about 2 months after it started growing back, which is kind of nice. And then that's the other guy in the picture is my older brother, Matt. He was a pastor at the time, and he would send me copies of sermons and stuff when I was in the hospital, which is really nice. And then the girl next to me is my darling sister, Ange. And she gave me the best present I got during the whole stretch. This came from her and her husband, Brian. He's done 4 trips to Israel, and this is olive wood that came. He bought this the day that he found out I had cancer. And then I really like it because he looks kind of sad. And he also has big open hands that say, Jill's welcome in heaven, and kind of sad this is happening, but come to me, Jill. And then at the bottom she wrote, "In him all things hold together," which is a verse from Colossians. And it's the best thing to say for someone who has their life falling apart. Everything holds together in Jesus. Best gift ever. I keep it right on my mantle. And Brian, crazy guy like this, he also put me in the first sermon that I've ever been in my entire life, which makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. And he was saying how he kind of thought I was a ditz, which I get. I get it. I giggle at stuff. I know I'm a little bubbly. But then he also called me which is the best compliment I've ever gotten. It's from Isaiah, and he called me an oak of righteousness. How, people might not see that right off the bat, but that your heart deep down is where it should be. And so that makes me cry whenever I talk about it. All right, and then that corner is Paul and Kelly Eady. They were a principal when Matt got the call, which is to Columbus, Wisconsin. And his older sister, she was about my age, and she got brain cancer and had passed away. So one of the first things Matt asked when we got the call is this going to be awful for you? And he's like, I'm not going to let it be awful, because he knew that I was mid-treatment. He knew that I could still pass away. He knew everything. and they have never treated me like I have cancer. And that's his awesome wife, Kelly, who gives me little stupid presents all the time. It's kind of wonderful. But they're stupid. It's like glow-in-the-dark beans, and I don't even know. Okay, and then in the bottom picture, so this is my friend Dom, and she's known for selling jewelry. She's always sold jewelry, even though she went to MLC. And this is my favorite picture of us, even though we don't look the greatest. We were in the Dells, and we were about to go to a cabin and pretty much drink and talk and have a good time, but everyone was childless except for Dom. She had to bring her little one who was crying in Walmart where we are, which I think is hilarious somehow. But anyway, so we all went to Walmart to buy treats and stuff. So Dom is the one who, a week into my treatment, I got an envelope from her, and it was filled with cash, like singles, fives. It was like, cash. And it also had a beautiful butterfly pin that I wear during the winter on my coat. All the time I do now. The next girl over is Abby. I had 2 Abbies in my wedding. And she is the one that told me, and I love this. She said, I don't pray for you to have a good treatment. I pray for you to get better. Like, don't mess around with little do-nothing prayers. Like, hit it where it needs to happen. And that's what she did. She also gave me one of the books on the book list that's in your flyer thingy-mabobber that I'll talk about later. And then the other one's Abby. And she sent me cards all the time, and they're like ridiculously pretty cards that you're almost ashamed that someone spent the time on to send it to you, but they were awesome. And she came to visit me and look at my pee. So that's awesome, because she was living in Vegas at the time, and I was in Wisconsin. Oh, and then the crazy guy. Okay, all right. So this is my main oncologist, or my main cancer doctor, and most people would say that he saved my life. Okay, it's probably true, but doesn't he have crazy eyes? He has so crazy eyes. And this is a picture from a really, really long time ago. But he made me famous through UW and through all the treatments that I got and all the experimental drugs that I got on. And I hate to say I owe him my life, because he believes that things evolved from a big explosion thousands of years ago, which is all garbage. And honestly, my results, they are not typical. And so he called me, and this bothers me, but he calls me an exceptional responder, which I think is total garbage. But anyway, so this is part of the article they did about me. I had a big, long interview, and then they made one for their yearly newsletter that I got a photo shoot for and the whole deal. That's not my photo shoot picture. My photo shoot pictures are way better. And anyway, so it's all garbage about how experimental drugs saved me and whatever, but you do it and you throw as much Jesus at them and try to get it in there. What I don't like is they say like I'm delusional because I believe that Jesus saved me. Not delusional. I'm the one that's got it right. But anyway, okay, then I also I got Wells famous because I got asked to write for the Forward in Christ. It used to be called Northwestern Lutheran, and I have my copy right here because I keep it with me all the time. Anyway, on page 30, I'm on there for 2 pages, and anyway, so I asked, they changed the article name, they changed a whole bunch of stuff, and I'm not thrilled about the article, but it is what it is. But the main thing that bothered me was I asked for a butterfly in the background. So I think I'll get something like this big, beautiful one, or a rainbow one, or even just a monarch. No, they give me that one. That moth, like, that's ugly. That's not a butterfly. It's like, this is such garbage. But anyway, I got over that too, because I mean, I got so many awesome cards from people. So I got to be Wells famous. And then there's another very famous woman who has had glioblastoma multiforme. And her name is Brittany Maynard. Now, this is my biggest soapbox, and I'm going to get a little pointed with my words. I think that Brittany Maynard is a tool of the devil for many reasons, but this is the first one. So there's my MRIs, and that's hers. Hard to tell the difference, hey? Can barely tell the difference, right? So I saw this thing on CNN about her. It was an hour long. And so she has glioblastoma too. So I was like, this is unbelievable. This is the next picture I want to show you. So PET scans measure temperature. They do that so that you can find out where the heat is, where most blood is, where it's multiplying the fastest. And one of these 3 pictures is mine, and the other 2 are hers. And it's just unbelievable how similar they are, right? So mine is the plain blue one, but the other 2 are hers. Then after I had seen all that stuff, she goes on to talk about her website, which is called Care and Compassion, but it's exactly the opposite. Care and Compassion is a website that promotes death with dignity. That's what they call it. It means if you're in it, if you know you're terminal, which she and I both did, if you know that the end is going to be rough, and with glioblastoma it is, people end up swearing, people end up yelling, people end up totally depressed, they end up no capabilities, you wet yourself. There's just a list of terrible things that happened to you in the last 3 months, or in the last month, last weeks of glioblastoma. So she wanted a way out, and she said, why can't I kill myself? But she didn't want to just like kill herself with a gun. She wanted to make it a big thing that everyone knows that this is a better way. So I wrote her a letter through the website, and I tried to make it as gentle as possible, and I showed her those pictures, and I showed her how everything was the same, and I told her that I had made it. I was over 3 years out at the time, and I got a very pointed response. This is what the main gist of the letter, but this is an exact quote. Why would God want me to suffer? Okay, I understand that she is no God in her life, and therefore doesn't get where I'm even going to. The main point of my letter was give God more time so that he could help you if he was going to, and then if he wasn't going to help you, that you could adjust to the fact that you are going to go to heaven because you know God now. But anyway, that all got lost on her. And she's raised millions of dollars and changed the law in California. She had to move to Oregon so that she could take the drugs to pass away. That YouTube video, I won't show any of it because it just messes me up and I get totally boiling angry. And the other thing that bothers me is she's so darn cute, isn't she? She's so cute. Like, she's adorable with the dog and the handsome husband and the vineyard wedding and the whole thing, and she looks better than I do, and no one's going to listen to me. They're only going to listen to her and the Today Show and everybody else who thinks it's fine. So the main thing that it all boils down to is, why did I get cancer? Okay.
Wait, did she kill her?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she did. Yep, and it was a few weeks later than her original date because she was still feeling all right. But anyway, yeah, she killed herself. And in fact, her husband was on Oprah, just a totally weepy mess, as he would be, because his wife is gone. And because she did it this way, or because it was a mess. Is that just legal in California now? No, there's about 8 states that let you do that. Yeah. Oregon's one of them. Washington's one of them. I think Minnesota might be one. But I try to just ignore that because like, she's so cute. You want to listen to her. She's so cute. Bothers me. And they make her as cute as can be. Her mom comes on and tells you how she's the light in a dark place, and she's been all these fabulous places and everything, and I'm over it. Okay, so why did I get cancer? First, that's a terrible, flawed question. Why are you asking about my little life when there's so many things that could happen? So in your cards, there's verses, and one of those is a Martin Luther one. And it says, this is my favorite Martin Luther quote. It says, "Fear of God and confidence in him must stand side by side. They got to live right together. And we must pass through both of them. And that a man might not turn presumptuous and too secure and trust only in himself. which is exactly where I was. I was trusting only in myself, but God changed my mind. And then he says, this is one of the reasons why God so severely tries the saints, which I like to think of myself as one because I believe in Jesus. So you're sinner and saint. So that's an awesome quote from Marty. And then there's another one in your card, and this is another one that I really like. It's talking about the same sort of a thing. This is the reason why God so disciplines his own with so many evils, because that's obviously what it is, it's sin in the world. His own are to see that the hand of the Lord has done this. That is, they are to mortify reliance, which is a fancy way of saying you gotta kill that idea that you can depend on yourself, on their own righteousness, and feel that they are nothing, which is totally what I felt like when I couldn't get out of bed because my legs weren't working. To despair their own wisdom, so you just get rid of all that head stuff, righteousness and power, and expect help from God, which is totally where I was. It's just awesome how Martin Luther can just like wrap his words around it. Oh, awesome. To show the world that there's sin in the world, obviously that's the easiest. To show God's power, he put me back together. To teach me some lessons, I've talked about that. To help me focus on him, that's exactly where I needed to be. And to point me which actually was my purpose on earth, to actually tell people about Jesus. And this is my favorite. Obviously, I want to live with Jesus forever in heaven. So any card you want to write, I would send that to someone who's sick. You can use the verse or not use the verse. Here's some do's and don'ts. I'm going to start with the don'ts. Don't treat them different than normal. It's the same person. If you're their friend before, you're their friend after. And if you talk about what you watch on television with your friend, you should still talk about what you're watching on television or what's going on Friday night or whatever. You know, it's not a big deal. Just treat them no different than you normally treat them because they're the same person. And then I kind of come back with this next one. Well, you can't assume that they're normal, though, because there's a lot of things with cancer treatment that you can't. They might not be able to communicate. They might not be able to do all the things they used to do. They might have to go throw up all the time. Their schedule is probably crazy. You have no idea all the things that happen in a hospital that really are just tiring. So if they need a nap, go let them take a nap. You know, like, don't assume that they're going to be at stuff, but also ask them to be in everything because we don't want to be left out of the party. Tell them that they look good unless they actually do. Okay, we know what we look like. This is not a mystery. We know that we have stitches that go all the way down the side of our head and that are black and make me look like a biker. You know, like this is, just don't say anything or say something nice if they actually do look good. Because some people get through cancer and it's like they don't even look like they have it. It's crazy. Oh, this is my favorite one. Okay, give them health tips. Okay, so the first thing, one of my aunts used to call me all the time, and she used to work at a nursing home. What am I looking at on time here? Got any time? None?
You got 10 minutes, yeah.
10 minutes? Great, that's perfect. Okay, so the whole conversation was totally a downer. I would get off the phone with her and be like, I'm going to die. It was totally a mess because that's all she could talk about was this person dying and that person dying and everything else. Like, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to answer your phone calls, but you have to because they're related to you. It's awful. Okay, and then I also met someone on a flight. This was the worst flight of my entire life. Did it roll or have turbulence? No. This was because I got the worst book that I've ever read in my entire life. It is called Conquering Disease. And look at this person on the cover. Oh yeah, bedazzled. And for good reason, because this person decided that okay, so I'm going to read some of the headings. Oh yes, this is my favorite. The 3 burr holes in my skull. Yeah. The soft lasers. Spinal misalignments and the amazing healing power of crystals. Mercury, the amazing healing power of magnetic fields. I'm sorry. Jewelry and glasses. So you're supposed to wear mercury, whatever. Oh yeah. And then the whole back section from here on is all about food and what you should eat, which is totally ridiculous because I tried every crazy nonsense diet on the whole face of the earth. I went paleo, I went vegan, I did no dairy. Oh, no dairy is the worst. In Wisconsin, I cook everything in butter. It's delicious. Why wouldn't you? Anyway, no cheese, no ice cream, no nothing. It's like, I know some people actually live like that every day, and for you, my soul hurts because it would have to be awful. I love dairy so much. So, okay, and then, okay, first things first, everything is in bold. I'm sorry. Who writes a book and puts it all in bold? It's ridiculous. And then the illustrations, this just cracks me up. This is the worst book I've ever gotten. And the guy that talked to me all the way from Chicago to Sacramento. It was so terrible. I couldn't escape. I was just stuck there and he wouldn't shut up. And I'm like, oh no. But anyway, so I got off the flight and I hugged my sister and I said, save me from this crazy weirdo who's following me around. It's nuts. Anyway, so that's the worst book I've ever read. Oh, okay. Okay. Say, you can do that. Oh, this is another soapbox for me. I hate this. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. And I know you're not supposed to say the word hate, but I hate this. So many people say, you're so strong. How did you make it through cancer? And I say, I am not strong. I'm a crumbly mess who cries. I'm a drama queen. I did not get through cancer. Christ got me through cancer. So don't tell that to people. That's putting Christ's power in their hands. They don't need any. They wanted to be nothing, like the Luther quote. So never say that to anybody. It's awful. And that's the whole thing about cancer. You can beat it. You can do this. You can go through chemo. You can be so strong. You can do the Relay for Life. You can do this. You can do that. It's all garbage. Don't tell them this. It's terrible. Never say those words. Okay, now, the good things. You can give them Jesus. You've got him. You've got him even if it's just one verse that I gave you. You've got him. Pray for them, but don't just say that you're praying for them. Actually do it, because everyone says that, but then they don't really do it. So make sure that you actually do it. Write them some awesome cards like Abby, or like the cards that you got. Give them some great gifts. And these are the gifts I want to talk about. My very good friend Abby, not the one that's sitting over there, but my other one, I have two Abbies, gave me a book that's not for everyone. This is a little thick. It's hard to read, but I loved it anyway. This is for someone who knows about Jesus already. Don't give it to someone fresh. They'll just drown and they'll be like, what mess are you giving me? But this book talks about what happens when you feel like your life's in the toilet and why Jesus is the only, it's called The Theology of the Cross. It's really all about Jesus and his cross, and it's wonderful. But he was a professor that I knew from MLC, and so I could kind of get through the dialogue a little bit better. Okay, this one's an awesome devotion book. It's called By Faith Alone. It's all devotions by Martin Luther, and we got this at MLC. And I loved it because it was just one page, just a page a piece, easy to get through, gives you some stuff to chew on, nothing too complicated, easy read. This one came later, and I should have had this when I was so sick because it's awesome. This one's called the 1 Year Book of Psalms, and every day takes a different section of a psalm, and it has a devotion on it, and it has an awesome quote, which I love quotes, obviously. You can tell I'm reading them all over the place. And then there's a prayer that's always a hymn verse, which I think is awesome. So if I could have written this book, I would have, because this book is amazing. And it's all just one little day devotions, and you can read the whole year if you want, or it doesn't matter. You don't have to go according to the dates. It's amazing. This one I got from my brother-in-law. This one's called 100 Bible Verses, and it's by this guy named Morgan. Sorry, I have the hiccups. Ooh, they're cheap. It's because I'm talking too fast. Sorry. Okay, so he's probably some sort of, big Christian church or whatever. So there's some sorting that needs to happen through this. But what he does is he gives you 100 verses that if you don't feel like you can talk about Jesus to other people, it's the verses that are the go-tos. He starts with Romans, justification, sanctification. So this book is awesome. You have to sort a little bit, but not too bad. And then he also gave me this, which is really Okay, this does not look impressive, but this was the best book thing that anyone gave me. This is a little pamphlet, and it's called Upbeat Faith for Downbeat Days. And it's all devotions about Jesus meeting the woman at the well, the one who had slept with all the different gentlemen and was coming to him. But it's not really about cancer. It's really about being needy for God. Oh, it's so good. The whole thing, it's awesome. There's great prayers. There's great little offsets to different parts of the Bible. It's awesome. So that is hard to get a hold of, though. There's like an address and even a phone number. I've ordered these. I think I've ordered like 50 copies of these because these are awesome, and I give them to anyone who's sick. Okay. Oh, and then these two. Oh, this is just a journal, but this was really nice because someone knew that I liked to write. And it was nice to keep track of all the people who had given me cards and stuff because I had gotten, let's see how many. 473 cards. So if you're going to write thank yous, good thing to have something to write all that down in. Awesome. That's over 5 years, but still. And then these two books are amazing. The author's name is Mark Paustian, and he used to teach at the school where I went. I had 2 classes with him, and they were the best classes I took at MLC. One was on communication, and one was on speeches. And the whole thing about these 2 books, how to use Bible stories to talk to people about big questions that they have in their life. For example, it's all... this is one I really like. Why do bad things happen to good people? Obviously, I've been talking about that the whole time. What's your God like? I'm pro-choice. Do you really believe in miracles? Religion is a crutch for the weak. Where's God when I'm hurting? There's just tons of great answers to those big questions. Yep.
Just so everybody knows, those are all listed in your program.
Yep, even the publishers and the dates and the whole shebang.
So you're able to get those.
Yeah, if you want them. Which I buy them all, but I should have put this one on the list because it's hilarious, but I didn't. All right, so that's my book list. So those are great gifts. I also got one of my best gifts from a co-worker who had nothing to do with Jesus, so that didn't have any of the other good stuff. But her husband had just been hospitalized and had recently passed away from leukemia. So she knew what it was like to be in the hospital for the long haul, and there were some awesome things in there. Now, I'm obsessed with Q-tips, and in the hospital, they give you no Q-tips. And now, this is ridiculous, but I need to clean my ears every day. I just feel dirty. And I can't handle it. She gave me Q-tips and real tissues, not the hospital tissues that are ridiculously thin and hurt your face and are awful. She gave me lotion and all the good stuff that you have at home, but you're not going to ask your husband, like, I need my frilly pink girly lotion and all this stuff, but she knew what I needed, and she gave all that stuff to me. Lip stuff, hooray, like, that's just stuff that you don't even think about. So great gifts. I also got 9 pairs of fuzzy socks, and I got 13 blankets. Cancer doesn't make people cold. Like, it's ridiculous how much stuff I got, like, ridiculous. If you're going to get me something like that, give me lounge pants, because I'm in the hospital all the time anyway. Like, give me some things I can actually wear. But anyway, so yeah, don't give people blankets and stuff. It's dumb. Like, and my heart hurts because I had to give away some of these beautiful quilts and stuff, but I don't need 13 quilts. I just don't. Okay, and then the last thing is go see them. Don't make an excuse. Don't say you're too busy. If they're dying, you should go see them. It's so easy. I have a tiny little soapbox about this too. My college roommate, I lived with her for 4 years, and I had been friends with her for the 4 years before at Luther Prep School. I'd been friends with her so long, she knew what all my underwear looked like. When you live with someone, you eat breakfast with them, you go to sleep with them, and the whole thing. In Wisconsin, we would have had a common law marriage. We lived together that long. She was living about 45 minutes away from me, and we would see each other about once every 2 weeks. I'd go down there, she'd come up to Lincoln, because there's shopping in Lincoln, and real restaurants, and her little nothing of a town had nothing. literally nothing. It's like a cow and a church where she teaches. Anyway, when I got sick, it took her 18 days to come and see me. When my husband called her twice and told her Jill might not make it till tomorrow. And so I've forgiven her, and she apologized, and everything's back to good, and I still love my friend. But don't wait around. Like, I could have been gone, and I wouldn't have seen my great friend. Anyway, okay. All right, good stuff. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is my favorite slide because, well, I've probably said that about a few of them, but this is my favorite picture of Jesus. It's at sunrise, the whole thing. This is my favorite psalm. The first verse is my confirmation verse. It was Luther's favorite psalm, so I figure it can be mine too. It's awesome. So we'll read it together, and you'll see how well it works with the painting. You guys can just read the blue verses, because I'll get into it on the black verses. So it's Psalm 46. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth give way, and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, and though its waters roar and foam, and the mountains quake with their surging. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, which kind of reminds me of my home church now is called Zion, and I always think of myself as living there and being part of that holy city that are waiting to happen in heaven. It's so exciting. A holy place where the Most High dwells. God is within her, she will not fall. God will help her at break of day. Nations are in uproar, kingdoms fall. He lifts his voice, the earth melts. The Lord Almighty is with us, the God of Jacob is our fortress. Come and see what the Lord has done, the desolations he's brought on the earth. He makes wars cease to the ends of the earth. He breaks the bow, shatters the spear, and he burns the shields with fire. He says, "Be still and know that I am God. He will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress." I love that psalm so much. It's so great. Just hits you right where you need to be and tells you all the great things about Jesus and his power. This last slide is just me and my information. And if anyone wants to email me, I almost put a phone number, but I didn't know what good-looking guys would be in the audience. I didn't want my husband getting jealous. So I left it off, I don't know what creepies come here, or good-looking ones. But anyway, so I can't read my email very well, but it's doingokay@hotmail.com. I've had the same email since I was in high school. Can you believe that? Yes, it's happened, and I've kept it clean for the most part. So don't send me any naked pictures or any terrible chain emails. I won't respond. And then that's my home address in Columbus. So if anyone wants to write me a card, which I love getting cards because they're not junk and they're not a bill, I'm more than willing to answer any questions, either there or now. Anyone have any questions for me?
So did you ever lose hope?
Not entirely. People have asked me if I got angry at God. I never got angry at God. A lot of people do. They say, why me? Why this time? Why all this awfulness? When I really haven't done all that much bad in my life. I had a pretty good life. I didn't tell a lot of people about Jesus, and there were a few things that were, that I knew that I had sinned and stuff, but I didn't really think I was a bad person. Was I, Abby? I wasn't a bad person. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. But you get to a point where things seem very hopeless. But you think back to all the verses that you know, like the first one in the verse, and they give you hope. That's the best way to combat anything that you run into, is to go to the Bible and look at the red words that Jesus said, because he only says good things. And even the discipline things, they point you in the right direction. So that's the best place to start. I was very sad. The idea of leaving my husband and my family and all my friends and all that good stuff, that's rough. But then you think to yourself, all these people that I know, they're going to be in heaven anyway. So it's like, I just get it before they do. So I Pastor Raditz, the one guy in the corner, one of the first things he said to me was, I am so jealous of you. Now, he knew that I could handle that, but a lot of cancer patients couldn't. Because it's true. You get to be with Jesus, like, right away. Like, he was assuming I was going to die the next day. And I could have, There's a lot of things that I could have died from back in those days. But that was an awesome thing for him to say to me. I mean, use that one with a grain of salt to people. But yeah, that was really good to say. So no, I wasn't hopeless. I was very sad. But I never was angry at God. I was a little angry so my sister, I have another story to tell about her. So she was going to be my girl. She was going to make sure that Matt found another mate because he's wildly introverted, and I pretty much said, Matt, you should marry me eventually. And we did after 5 years of dating. So she knew that he was going to be not into looking, not into trying, not into caring about it anymore. He's very quiet. He could have a depression problem. I mean, your spouse died. It's bad. She was going to make sure that didn't happen. So, way to go, Sister Ange. She was going to set him up with any girl that walked. It was going to happen. It was going to be good. So that's my story about my sister. Any more questions? Sorry. Yeah.
With your trial, so you said you were 1 out of 112.
Yeah.
The only one that made it.
Mm-hmm.
Do they still use that trial, or have?
This is
because like nursing school, they're like, if you have, it's like all the odds and. Like,
I know.
You use your money for what's going to save the most people, and if it obviously just saved you, like.
Yeah, they cut it.
Okay.
They cut it right away. Yep.
Like,
And in fact, people ask me about that all the time. Can I get the drugs that you were on?
Yeah.
Because obviously I made it, and most people don't, so they want the ones that I had. Now, temozolomide, the blue pills, they're available. They're FDA approved. They're totally normal. Now, the combo that I had, the cinderanib, is FDA approved, but the selingitide is not. And so I don't think it'll ever be approved. I don't even think I told you guys about this, because it causes some pretty severe side effects. Okay, so I had both hypertension and hypotension, which is a mess. You're checking your blood pressure all the time, which that doesn't sound all that, that's little in the long run. But it also makes you have diarrhea every day of your life, and it doesn't stop and it doesn't quit, and you lose weight wildly rapidly. So they put me on steroids to push my weight, and then I was down to a size 6. Jill is not made for a size 6. This is not how I operate. In fact, I was just going through all my pants, and I had to, oh my gosh, it made me so sad. I'm like, I was the size. It's unbelievable. How did I let myself get back to this? But it is what it is. Anyway, so yeah, the diarrhea thing is a major side effect, and almost all of us had it. So they don't like that at all. So they killed it pretty much.
They didn't look farther into if you had certain genes.
Yeah, actually, they're really working on that. Actually, my neurologist, my guy that does all my surgeries, his name is John Quo, and he's at UW-Madison, and he is huge into genetic therapy. That's actually, yes.
The only thing that would really make sense.
That's exactly why I made it and other people didn't. Yeah. So they've taken all my brain tissue that they've gotten from all my different surgeries, and they keep testing and keep testing and keep testing. They haven't come up with an answer, but, that's the whole reason why you do these studies, to help other people, because you know you're going to die anyway. So why not try something, Why not try it? And so it's disappointing that it got killed so fast, but it's also wonderful that it helped me. So yeah, the genetic sequencing, all that stuff, it is being tested to the max, and they still haven't figured it out. I call it Jesus. They don't. Yep.
So you talked about sadness. Was there any, or how did you deal with fear? Like, were you ever scared to die, or like going into a surgery? And if so, were there 5 passages you went to?
That's interesting, because the times when I was the most scared was when I would wake up and something wasn't working anymore, or when. Okay, this is the other time I was most scared, right before bed, because sometimes this cancer will take you in your sleep, which I would kind of love actually if that was how it was going to take me, is like do it when I'm sleeping. But I would be so nervous to go to sleep. So I'd pray over and over, and one of my favorites is Luther's evening prayer. It's awesome. It talks about like guarding me from the devil and just like keep me safe until the morning. And then morning prayer is like, yeah, you know, it's awesome. Those are my favorite prayers. And then lots and lots of hymn verses. I think of one that's from the supplement. There's a hymn called Day by Day, and there's one, the last verse is awesome. It says, "Oh, what joy to know that you are near me. And when my burdens grow too great to bear," oh, it's awesome. It's awesome. Search it out. You'll find it, and you'll be like, it's great. So a few things like that helped me. And sometimes I'd pray. Obviously, you got to pray. And then you got to go back to the Bible, because that's the only thing that helps. Jesus is the only thing that helps. The only time I was really nervous before a surgery is I saw the table with the tools. Oh, no, you don't look at that table. It's bad. There's like a little mini chainsaw. No joke. It's disgusting. So all my surgeries have happened through this scar, and they keep making it a little bigger each time. And the whole thing is like, they do that to my skull. I'm open, like brain all over the place. And, one of the cool things before my surgeries, this is to reassure you, and it really was wonderful. I had what they call a functional MRI. So they put you in the tube and they ask you questions, and you don't answer verbally. You say nothing. And they map out where your blood flow goes in your brain so that they don't take the wrong parts during the surgery. I was like, oh, that is really a relief because you're poking around in there. I don't know what you're touching. So that's really like, hey, you know what you're doing. And these guys, they all had tassels on their shoes and were very, you're a brain surgeon. You make all the money in the world from Wells Viva. So anyway, my confidence in them was very high. I mean, the only thing that I didn't love is we don't know if this is cancer. We don't know if this is, and I figure that's just God's way of teaching me some patience, because I'm not a very patient person. I mean, sitting in a hospital room is awful. Because I can't waste my time like this, but it's 5 years of wasting your time, so just get used to it, right? So I was more angry about this, and if the mixed results, and everyone's going to have that in cancer.